Well, hello everyone, and welcome to That Christian Nerd channel. I am super excited for this video. This is going to be my first time doing a long form video reviewing a movie, and I'm not alone for this one. I'm going to be joined by my friend Ryan to review this movie. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Ryan.
Hey guys, my name is Ryan Brown, and I've known Isaiah for a long time. He and I went to school together, pretty good buddies. Um, I review movies. I've been doing so for like 4 years now. So, it's become a pretty big passion of mine. I talk about movies so much that it probably annoys a lot of people, but it's what I know. I write reviews on my Medium account, which I've been doing for a little over a year now, and I really enjoy. And I'm very honored to be on this little video session talking about Spiderman Lotus. Isaiah, thank you for having me.
And I will make sure to leave a link to his Medium account in the description of the video. With that said, however, I want to, as the video, of course, is playing in the background so you guys can see a little bit of it, I want to give a introduction both to why I'm doing this and also the background to the movie. So I'm doing this really in part because I love Spider-Man. He's captured my attention since I started remembering things like 4 or 5 years old. The first Spider-Man movie came out a year before I was born, and they've always been so nostalgic to me. One of the only times I've been to a theater was to go see the Amazing Spider-Man movie with my brother when I was a kid. And then Tom Holland helped me fall back in love and be excited about the character again. So obviously, I was excited to hear about a fan-made Spider-Man movie coming out. Especially some of my favorite content is fan-made projects. Stuff like Dragon Ball Deliverance. Stuff like what the creators of Death Battle have done over the years. So when I saw the trailer for it as well, it honestly made the movie look good. Spider-Man's web swinging in the trailer is really, really cool. However, news came out about how terrible some of the people behind the scenes of the film were. But I don't want to get into that for this movie review. If you're curious about that, you can definitely search around. You'll find it pretty easily. But what I want to do is talk about the source material that this movie is based off of before we get into the actual film itself. So, probably the most important comic for this movie is probably Spider-Man Blue. In this comic, some time has passed since Gwen's death, and he is now married to MJ. It is now Valentine's Day, and he is still grieving the loss of Gwen Stacy. So he starts recording himself talking about their story together and all the good and bad that happened. The dialogue, banter, and everything works really well together in this comic. It is certainly a deep dive and a psychological deep dive into the character that can be used to discuss depression, grief, mental health, and those sorts of subjects. For me, and spoilers, by the way, but for me, one of the most impactful parts of this comic is the end, where Mary Jane overhears what Peter is saying, and instead of being mad or upset that he is still grieving her or in some way loves her and wishes things were different, she supports him. She asks that he say hi for her. It is great for me because it is showing us how one should properly handle grieving and someone's mental health at a difficult time. She could have reacted in anger, jealousy, and all these things, but she instead reacts with love and gentleness. And that is a really cool thing that she does. So the next one that's super important to this film is The Kid Who Collects Spider-Man. This is a story about a boy who is basically Spider-Man's #1 fan. He collects all sorts of stuff, and the Daily Bugle writes a section about him, and Spider-Man decides to visit him. He hangs with him for a while and even reveals his secret identity. However, and again, spoilers, the twist comes at the end. It is revealed at the end that the boy suffers from cancer. As a result, is probably not going to live very long. His wish, however, was to see Spider-Man before he passed away. So this is definitely some important background because this fan-made film is adapting these two stories in order to tell a more mature psychological story about Spider-Man. I myself enjoy also psychology and psychological deep dives. I was a huge fan of the Joker movie, for example, when it came out. So I know that this kind of thing can be done and can be done well. But how well does this movie do with the kind of thing that it's attempting to do? And with that said, let's look at some of the good and the bad. For me, being a glass half full kind of guy, I definitely had a couple of positives with the movie. One of those is Spider Man's costume. You could see it here as you're watching the video, but I really enjoyed Spider-Man's costume. I don't think it's the greatest, but I do think it is pretty good and pretty good for this movie. Furthermore, I also like the concept. I think, as you'll see here as the review continues, that this is a movie that has a good concept but does not execute on it very well. But regardless, the concept that they had for the movie, again, basing it on these two storylines and stuff, is a good idea. There are some cool web swinging that takes place in the movie, but honestly, me nor Ryan have a whole lot of good to say about this movie. So, with that said, let's talk about some of the bad aspects of the film. And with that, I will allow Ryan to go ahead and start that.
Yeah, so I was aware that Spider-Man Lotus had a lot of baggage in it before its release, and I'm shocked that the creators even went forward with releasing it at all. But you know, art for art's sake. So the movie, where do I even start? I I'm aware that it is um a fan film, and I don't fault the movie for being a fan film, but I have a lot of criticisms towards the craft. I mean, like you see here, with the film playing the in in filmmaking, right? In directing, there's a rule called the 180-degree rule. And what this basically means is that if you have a conversation between two characters, you don't break you don't break this rule. So like for example, if you have a character and the camera is on their left shoulder, if you do a reverse shot conversation, the camera should be on the right shoulder of the other character. So there's a line between the two, and the camera doesn't cross it unless there's a very specific narrative reason. At the start of this movie, like not even 10 minutes in, characters are having a conversation, and the 180-degree line is it's broken again and again, and it's not even for any narrative reason. It's simply whether it's lack of understanding of filmmaking rules or simply amateurish work, I don't know. But I can tell that even though that this is a fan film, there still should be a level of care and at least filmmaking understanding. That's how you get so many fan films or short films or student films that push directors into making big Hollywood productions. It's because they showed a level of prowess while making their films. Here, there's a severe lack of filmmaking knowledge in nearly every regard. The filmmaking overall is just very lackluster.
One of the issues I had was that it's like very depressing, which is fine if you guys get into the Spider-Man Blue comic book that this is based off. It's like, yeah, it's depressing. Duh. It's kind of supposed to be. He's grieving, right? He also is not quite himself. He's different. Like he's not nice Peter Parker necessarily, but again, makes sense. He's grieving. You go through the stages of grief. Anger is definitely one of them. So whereas I understand the people who are saying that this is not an accurate representation of Peter Parker, I also get that Peter, even in the comics, is not always nice, right? So I understand that sort of thing. However, the issue is that it drags as if like not that it's focusing too much on his grief or depression or something like that, but that it kind of beats you over the head with it. So like for example, later on in the movie, they show you screens of like, or they show you images of what happened between Green Goblin, Peter, and Gwen Stacy, right? And that kind of storytelling, it was like, okay, that's pretty cool. It's a quick way to get us up to date about why Gwen died, this sort of thing, right? So it worked, okay? But then they decide to tell us again in the movie itself by actually depicting the Green Goblin fighting Peter and kind of what happened there. So it's like we did not need that scene because we already know what happened, both if you've read the comics, but also because you've just told us in the film. We don't need to see Green Goblin, even. We don't need to see the fight between the two or how Gwen died. And
Mhm.
so it just kind of felt like it was not that it was focusing again too much on his grief, but that it kept beating a dead horse. It's like, yes, we get it. We know what happened. Let's see how the characters are all dealing with it. And they do spend a lot of time focusing on how the characters are all dealing with Gwen's death. But even that too becomes interesting because part of the another concern with the film is how much just certain shots and certain scenes sort of linger around for what feels like too long. So like one example would be there's a scene where Harry Osborn and MJ are in the car and they're like crying and talking and stuff and she's, you know, opening up to and things like that, trying to help Harry Osborn. And it made me laugh when I watched it with my friend initially because the shot lingers on her face, but it makes her face like disoriented for a split second. Like Ryan, I don't know if you remember what I'm talking about, but it lingers way too long, and it just kind of gets funny at that point.
Another big
Yeah.
problem is that like none of the characters feel like they like each other. Like you know, a clip was just playing of Peter planning on proposing to Gwen, but like their interactions are so like stiff and awkward in a way that doesn't really show that these people actually like like even like each other, let alone love each other, right?
Mm.
It's like I don't I, I hate to call the acting bad, but it is, right? Like none of these actors are able to convey both like the fact that the characters are grieving, but also the fact that they care about one another. It's just a lot of like, oh man, you've changed since Gwen died. Well, yeah, I've changed. She's gone. Why aren't you different? Blah blah blah. And it's just like it gets very overbearing and just not very engaging to watch. I agree 100% when you say it beats you over the head with it. I also hate the fact that Peter, like his voiceover throughout the entire movie, gets very grating very quickly, and I don't just like it's not it's not an enjoyable watch. It's not something that you feel, but you also you engage with. It's just constant. Everyone's sad. Everyone is upset. No one's happy. It's a miserable. It is a miserable viewing experience.
Yeah, definitely. Even when I was listening to the comic, so again, Spider-Man Blue, where he is grieving, where he is depressed, where he is sad, that sort of thing, it was it was more entertaining than a lot of the things that this movie does, unfortunately. And that I think is also a really sad but important critique too, is that the source material that this movie is based on is better than this movie.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah, and that's coming from someone who throughout most of my life has not read comics. The way that I engage with superhero media was by watching the movies and shows.
Mhm.
But still I read them for the purposes of this video and yeah, it's there are a lot of aspects that are taken out, like that I think make it a worse adaptation. And one example of that is what I mentioned, right? So MJ and Peter are married in the Spider-Man Blue comic, which makes MJ's love and gentleness towards Peter as he's grieving the loss of what would have been his wife more impactful, at least to me,
Oh,
because that shows a level of maturity and things like that.
mhm.
But that doesn't quite happen in this movie. It doesn't hit the same
No.
because in this movie they're all just friends. She's
Mm,
not married to him. She's
mhm,
not even dating, right? So it doesn't hit the same. Uh, the Another big thing was that the big reveal in The Boy Who Collects Spider-Man is that the boy is about to die, right? We're told, but that is a reveal or twist at the end of the comic. And then the comic just ends,
mm,
right? It's so good. But in this, we're told immediately when MJ gives Peter a note about it,
mm.
about the boy. So we're told immediately. Now, of course, I still, felt for the boy, of course, especially because I used to be that kid, not the kid who was sick, of course, but just the kid that loved Spider-Man and wanted to see him, right? That kind of thing. So you
Mhm.
still feel for the kid, but the reveal does not hit the same at all. And so
No,
I think missing those two big aspects of the original comics makes this adaptation of those comics worse ultimately.
the comic where he talks to the kid, right? He doesn't trauma dump on him, right?
Hmm.
Okay, good. Because he does this in this movie and it's
Yes.
infuriating. It is, I think it might be the worst part about the movie. Like that is not Spider-Man. No live action like big film version. Neither Toby nor Andrew nor Tom. None of their versions come nearly that close to being as un-Spider-Man like as that. I will die on that hill. Like that is just not Spider-Man. That is unforgivable. That's not someone I look up to. Like, do you think so? Like, do you think that kid would like look up to his hero as much as after Spider-Man just tells him like, "Oh, the world is a cruel place and everyone I know is dead." Like, do you really think that's something Spider-Man would do? Because I don't.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, right? Peter definitely reveals a secret identity to the boy, and Peter does express his self doubt. Is like, why are you idolizing me? Right, out of everyone, right? Like the Avengers exist in this world, right? But this boy chose Peter, and it's like he doesn't quite feel like he can live up to this kid's expectations and hopes and dreams. So the comic does address his self doubt, but no, it doesn't get nowhere near as far as what this movie does. So in this movie, of course, Spider, he decides to visit the boy as Spider-Man, but he ends up trauma dumping on him. Uh,
Mm.
Now, again, I do want to be fair here. There is one good scene where they're playing this Spider-Man game together, and the boy asks him, "Is like, what happened to the girl?" Right, because the Daily Bugle covered the story about the girl dying as a result of the Green Goblin, right? So, uh, the boy asks him like, "What happened to the girl?" And then Peter like freezes and tenses up. And to
Mhm.
be fair, that is a really good scene, and that makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
But and also, to play devil's advocate just a little bit more, um, I, in my own personal life, as well as I know in the lives of others, people have definitely made irrational decisions when, they are grieving or something like this. And trauma dumping, right, was one of those things. I had someone do that to me when I was a kid.
I agree with you there. I'm fine with heroes like showing their vulnerability to like kids and all that. That's fine. Um, and I will agree that there are moments during that whole scene that do kind of like make me feel something, but it like a lot of it just feels really sloppy and very
Yeah.
just like overly blunt and um just not done in a way that feels um maybe not logical, but not true to who Spider-Man is at his core. Parts of that scene just feel so just like clumsy and very like poorly done. So during the opening fight, Spider-Man is fighting Shocker, I guess because he robbed a bank or something, and then he gets this. Okay, so he can tell that Shocker's weapons are like super powerful, right? Like those I don't know if they're sonic booms or something. But his gauntlets are powerful, right? They could be lethal. He doesn't know that, but he knows they're powerful. So what does he do? He takes Shocker's goons and uses his webs to shield himself from Shocker's blasts without knowing if they'll kill the goons or not. I don't know if they do, but I mean that's just that doesn't sit right with me. I'm sorry. That doesn't sit right with me
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah, regardless of how Peter's grieving, I don't even know when that fight occurs on that timeline anyway, but that's not something that Spider-Man would do. Like he try even the criminals, right? He tries to save.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely not something that would occur with him. I will say too, one of the positive things that I like that I didn't mention earlier was that I like how the movie represents like Peter's responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Like he will at the beginning of the movie, of course, as you might have seen, he doesn't even propose to Gwen because he has to be Spider-Man, to help people. And then at the end, he tells Harry and Gwen, like, okay, or Harry and MJ, like, okay, I will be at this place. It's really important to you guys. I'll definitely be there. He shows up and then he has to go because he has to go be Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like those two scenes I thought were good, and they did make me feel something because again, we see this idea of great power comes with great responsibility, and him hating but accepting the fact that he has to um, leave certain aspects of his life at certain times in order to go be what he needs to be for other people. And that was a huge inspiration to me as a child, and it's definitely something that you see in this movie. So, to be fair, I think kudos to them for representing that in a meaningful way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say, like, there are bits and pieces of this movie that I do unironically like. Um, I'd say the costumes are fine. Like the spider suit looks like I think the movie received like $100,000 in like Kickstarter money, and the suits look good. Like they clearly spent that money on making those suits look um at least passable, and they look fine. Um, the web swinging, I would say, looks fine. There's a you can tell that most of the visual effects money went to the web swinging and not the car chase at the start because it looks terrible. It looks like it was from that Unity engine or whatever it's called. Um, yeah, so that
Yeah.
didn't. But the web swinging looked okay. The suits looked fine. Um, yeah, that's all I got for things I liked. So sorry.
No, yeah, that's fair. There's definitely a lot of reason, both you know, outside of both behind the scenes, right, critiques of the people involved, as well as critiques of the movie itself. There's definitely a lot of that to go around, and it has been going around, especially since this movie was released. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so
Oh,
overall, uh, overall, I would say bad movie, but there were some good things about it, and as the thumbnail suggests, I wish this movie was great. This creator hyped up this movie so much. He wanted it to compete with Tom Holland's Spider-Man. There were rumors that a director, I think, of the Spider-Man films congratulated him on the movie. I don't know if that's true or not, but those are just rumors and stuff. They really hyped this up to be a competitor, and one of the best fan made projects ever made. And it's not, but man, I wish it was, because this would have been such an amazing thing to have as both someone who loves fan made projects and someone who loves Spider Man deeply.
mhm. This movie is bad. I wouldn't recommend you buy it, even if you found it at the $5 bin at Walmart. And that's all I gotta say. I do have, you know, I may not really like this movie, but I do love Spider-Man, and I do have like one or two comic recommendations for the audience watching or listening to this, whatever, and for you, Isaiah, because these two comic stories are really good, and I think you should read them.
Go for it.
One of them is called Spider-Man Life Story, and it chronicles basically kind of like another reality where Spider-Man gets his powers in the 60s and basically lives his life as if like it was set in the 60s. It's a really good story. It's like set in different decades. So like you see pieces of his life that occur in those time periods. It's really good. It's a really good story. My second one is a bit of a classic, but it is Kraven's Last Hunt. It's a very kind of dark, almost gothic Spider-Man story, featuring obviously Kraven and the black suit. But it's really good. I love what it does for Kraven's character, and it's just a really kind of moody, very suspenseful comic that I think everyone should check out. That's about it from me. This was fun. I would love to do something else like this, like anything comic book movie related or like comic book media related. I am all in for because I love this stuff.
Yeah, to everyone watching this, thank you so much for joining me for this for my first review. Ryan, thank you so much for joining me for it as well. I would definitely encourage you guys to like, share, and subscribe if you like this kind of content and other kinds of nerdy content. I have all kinds of things on my platform, like gaming, like talking about Marvel. I'm definitely going to be talking about the comic books and making videos on that this movie's based off of and stuff. So yeah, I encourage you to check out my channel as well. And like I said, I will leave a link in the description to Ryan's Medium account. So if you're interested in movie reviews and his thoughts on things, you can definitely check that out as well. Thank you, everyone, again, and have a blessed day.